is the student instruction and student services. And that's Shirley, Ms. Winchell.
And Jason Dean. Okay. Linda, do you do roll call for these?
I think I will roll call the committee, and then the committee can approve the agenda.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Roll call the committee, and then the committee can approve the agenda.
Okay.
Okie dokie. So, our chair, Mrs. Winchell,
Here?
and Mr. Dean.
Here.
Those are the two board members here for the meeting.
Yes. Okay, item 1.02 is approval of the agenda. Make a motion to approve it. And I'll second. Okay, 2.01.
Shirley, you need to vote.
It's just the two of us.
I realize that, but
Oh.
you made a motion and Dean, but I didn't hear a vote.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, 2.01, Instruction and Student Services Committee meeting minutes of November 9th. Bring it forward as a motion,
Second.
a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 3.01. Okay, thank you. Just getting used to the new routine. Thank you.
You want to stand at the podium, Dr. Steve?
Oh, is that easy? Okay, sure.
Yeah, probably better.
Okay. 3.01 is we're looking for the board to approve adoption of a advanced placement computer science principles course provided by College Board. And that is consistent with twofold, really. It looks to be consistent with our expansion of advanced placement courses at McDowell, as well as provides another link to what we're offering into more computer science courses and availability, sort of an upgrade, if you will, of looking at our existing offerings that are unique to this particular discipline. So, and that's curriculum and such is provided exclusively from College Board, just as we've done in the past with adding advanced placement courses.
Okay, and that document looked like it was directly from the College Board.
That is correct, yes.
Is that course taught here in the high school?
It is not currently offered.
Okay, it will be offered
Yes.
for next year.
Yes. And the timeliness allows now for us to include it in the next year's scheduling guide.
Nice. Any questions with that?
Is there any lead up to this course, or is this an independent? Does this fit into some sort of progressive?
It really is viable. We're trying to expand how we offer at College Board. College Board themselves is trying to make their courses far more accessible and inclusive while retaining the academic integrity that comes with the College Board experience. There's not necessarily prerequisites for that, but we would look at teacher recommendation, and really the counselors have that kind of extensive conversation with students and families when it comes to applying or trying to schedule into these particular courses. We look for strong math, I guess is what we're saying, but we don't have a prereq per se in mind. We'll look at that. Success in algebra would be something that the counselors would look at the historical performance of that student and have that discussion with the parents.
Okay, great. Anything else on 3.01? Okay, 3.02.
We're looking to, this is the final sequence change in our high school social studies courses. The first of that was the adoption of the world geography class for 9th grade, offering exclusively world history in 10th grade, and then exclusively U.S. history in grade 11. So we're seeking the updated course name change for that and course description. And then we will go forth and begin the preliminary plan for what the curriculum adjustments will look like based on a team of teachers from grade 11 and grade 11 actually that will assist in actually making the curricular modifications. So it will be exclusively a U.S. History 11 class for next year.
Okay, great. Any questions on that? Okay, 3.03, advanced video production.
So really, this is not necessarily a new course, but rather a merging of two courses that we had previously offered. We found that we ran into a lot of logistic difficulty when we had a separate course called Video as Advertising and a separate course of promotion and filmmaking. Oftentimes, it was very logistically challenging for students that are really interested in that particular track to schedule both. It can be very difficult. It's kind of akin to when you're scheduling in college, you really want to get into a course, but it's closed or not offered at a time that's conducive to your schedule. So we were inadvertently not allowing students to pursue that. So what we, on the recommendation of the teacher, Stephanie Weiss, and the ELA department chair, grade 9 and 10, Nicholas Emanuel, we looked at combining those courses rather, allowing the student to simply sign for the advanced video production, which will allow, that will be differentiated for students who have had that. They in turn will be able to schedule that course, that singular course, and gain experience either in the video advertising and promotion filmmaking as part of that course. So we're not necessarily bringing forth a new curriculum or anything that's different. It's just simply based on what we think is going to be better for students as far as scheduling and with the logistics.
Okay, great. Any questions on video production? Okay, 3.04 is the 2021-2022 Women's Care Center contracts.
So Mill Creek Schools have long had a history of working with the Women's Care Center. They do come to our health courses each year to talk about healthy relationships, successful relationships, and cover a couple issues, relative to that. And we in turn enter into a contract. I believe it's approximately $1,000 for them to provide that level of service. They provide a lot of materials with that, a lot of, I know it's very compelling. I know that the health folks have been advocating for this for a long time, and each year this comes up and they're really speak to the power of the presentation and the impact that it has on students. So I would ask that you consider that for adoption for the next 4 years.
And that is in health classes, so it involves all of the students?
Yes, all students would be exposed.
So that was quarterly, I think.
Correct.
I saw. Okay, 3.05, welfare RTF. Okay.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody.
Good evening.
3.05 is a contract for a Belfair residential treatment facility, Applewood Centers. It's an agreement for the school district to pay a daily rate of $258.37 for a Mill Creek Township School District student who has been placed at that treatment facility. We will be paying for the educational component of that placement.
Is it unusual that that's in Ohio? And
I have some familiarity with Belfair. We had a former student there a few years back who had been placed there.
okay.
So it really depends on the county and what beds are available at different centers for treatment.
Okay, and this is a placement for one student.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, 3.06, title change for applications of technology.
So we do update our scheduling guide for our high school students on a pretty regular basis. And on the advice of the department, they really looked at the applications and principles of technology courses and said, students or parents that we really want to catch their eye and say, have a better, more proper fitting title for what that course entails. Therefore, we're recommending that applications of technology become advanced computer design and manufacturing, and computer and design and manufacturing is a departure from the principles for technology. Just simply renaming the courses, not making a lot of curricular adjustments, but we feel that that title better represents what's being taught, what the content and skill in that particular course is.
Okay, Okay, and 3.07, the final item there.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Okay, so-
Principles for technology, computer to be replaced by a title of only computer design and manufacturing. Again, I think it's going to speak well for the families. I think that are trying to do that to get real involved in particular with the robotics and then technology and computer science curriculum. They will see this flow a little bit more easily in the scheduling guide when they're making their course recommendation.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we take 3.01 through 3.07 to the regular meeting at the end of the month. You have a second?
Second.
All
Mrs.
those-
Winchell, I did have a question for you, Dr. Soups. This is just a general process question. How do you review your courses like this? Do you get input from the departments, or do you, go through your whole booklet each year?
We really do rely on a couple different sources for that. One of the primary ones is just what you said, the department as a whole, via the department chair. We're constantly looking at like school districts or things that are emerging or new courses that come across either that could come from associations, that could come from districts around us, that could be from like school districts, either statewide or nationwide, that are constantly adopting and revising. That comes from dialogue through different curriculum associations that may say, check into this, or just simply evidence based on a need that we say, like, look, that this fits a local need, or this is something that we need to look at based on input from a variety of different sources. So there's no singular source that says we need to update this or we need to upgrade this. It rather comes from a lot of different areas, either performance-based or input from community, input from stakeholders, the department themselves, things like that. It's a lot of different sources.
How many courses do we have at the high school, 9 through 12, approximately? 200, 500?
No, I don't think the number's that high. I'd have to research that to give you an exact count. That's a good point.
I was just curious if you knew it.
Not right off the top.
Okay.
I'm familiar with all the courses, but I can't say upper count. It's a lot.
Okay, thank you.
It's a lot. But kudos to the department chairs, because they really are instrumental. They're the content specialists at the end of the day, and they know what the next step needs to be when we're upgrading things. They're really instrumental.
Thank you.
Okay, if we could vote on bringing those forward to the regular board meeting. All
Yes.
those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, 4.01 is an informational item, the 2021-22 school year cyber provider.
Just really in its most infant stages at this point, looking what cyber provider for next year, what that may look like. So nothing really to report at this time.
Will it be different than the
I
cyber
really
provider?
don't know. I'll definitely keep it posted.
Did we get everything worked out with Keola? Do we feel like we're
It's a process. It really is. It was kind of a perfect storm as they were expanding and doing some internal things that they were doing differently, and then the floodgates opened as far as enrollments were concerned, and that really compromised both their staffing and course cap size and a lot of internal nuances that we had to endure with them along that. So it's far from perfect even today, but we're trying to minimize the disruption to families.
would it be appropriate to get a year-end feedback on all the different models, the hybrid model, the 100% virtual model, Keola model, just to get some input from these folks and see if they actually liked it?
Yeah, and that's part of that decision making. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then I had asked if we could talk about two additional items at this meeting. One of them was you could just update us on what is the technology, what technology has been provided through this from the beginning of this year until now. And if you could talk to us just a little bit about the in-service or training that teachers have had with that. What's new in our district this year, technology-wise?
On the hardware side, is where I think we were asking initially, and that would certainly be with the IPVO document cameras. And that training occurs as needed with departments or individuals reaching out to us. You can speak to the laptops.
So as Dr. Stoop said, the IPVOs were document cameras, as they're sometimes called. Those were distributed to all the teachers that did have in K-8, and we're conducting those trainings on a requested basis. And what we're doing is we're showing them how they can enhance or support their instruction. And Tim Mosley and his guys handle the wiring part, because I wouldn't do that, because then who knows what they'd be projecting if I was in charge of plugging those things in. And the laptops, they have the same functionality as the desktop. Now they're mobile, and in the cases, and we hope we don't have too many of them, where teachers have to go virtual or work from home again, then that's a much more robust product for them to use. And again, that's the functionality hasn't changed, the mobility has changed.
I do have a question on that. I know they got the laptops, and I saw, you know, in the notes about the desktops were sold or something like that. Were they able to keep the monitors? I know a lot of teachers like to have both the laptops and the monitors so they can do the two splits. Aaron's shaking his head yes.
Tim?
Yes, the monitors are staying. We do allow docking stations for them, so we can use the monitors with the laptops. An extra screen is larger.
Beautiful.
The desktops, at this time, our plan is to find a buyback program, since they're only 2 years old, see what we get back from them.
But they have the monitors, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I had the opportunity to take a look at one of the laptops for a second grade teacher, and that was a tremendous purchase and a home run for these teachers. You know, with a camera and a full suite of software, a nice large screen. So kudos to everybody involved there, Dr. Roberts and Mr. O'Toole and the technology department for the foresight to realize that the Chromebook just does not cut it when we're trying to, you know, fight this storm. So nice job, really nice job.
Great.
17.
Okay, and then the last item that I had asked us just to talk about, you know, can you believe we're already thinking about next year, but is anything going on about the calendar for next year? Have you started that process, or does that start later? Where is that right
The
now?
initial draft is in the hands of the MEAs for review, and they're supposed to give Dr. Roberts feedback this week.
Is there a way to capture, rather than it just involving our administration and the MEA, is there a way to get some input from parents and students?
In my experience, and this is only the 4th year I've worked on this, it's always been an administrative function working with the MEA. That doesn't mean we couldn't, but that's always been the process. So
Could we look
for
in?
a change like that to be made, I would defer to Dr. Roberts or Mrs. Mosley on that. I don't think that would be my call to make.
Certainly, anytime there's an opportunity to involve parents in the operations of district, it's always welcomed. Would love to hear a little bit more about how we can maybe get them involved and how they would weigh in. So, yeah. Well, we're certainly not opposed to that at all.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
I think also, and I don't know how soon you should do it, with the Erie County Tech, our Erie County Tech students.
They usually share theirs, and when we do get that, we try to get as close as possible. The difficulty with that is the requirements within our district that we have to meet, and with a lot of the construction, we have to maximize that time when we don't have people in the building, where we can have those jobs being done, you know, to make our schools, you know, like we did this year with the upgrades and all the projects that Mike's been working on.
And they're working with 10 other districts.
It's never a dull moment when you have to work with 10 districts. The VOTEC's in a tough spot trying to match with everybody.
You know, I think Mike would confer. I mean, you know, the calendar is important because a day here, a day there with all the projects, you know, that might, you know, difference between having 9 weeks, 10 weeks, and a lot of projects in the summer. So I think getting input too from the construction projects would be important.
And Mike and I actually did meet previously. I think it was back October, November when we first started discussion to look at start dates and end dates and maximizing that. So, you know, 100% correct. And Mike and I've already started that in the initial draft.
Mr. Orlando, in terms of the calendar, are we still baking in snow days? Or are we expecting to have flexible instructional days? Are we going to reapply for that? And
Well, we have 3 years, so.
we had 3
have
years on that? I didn't remember what the term was. But are we going to bake in snow days, or, because that seems where we always get caught. We have 2 snow days, we always bake in there, and sometimes we use them, sometimes we don't. Most of the time we don't, and it really
Right.
messes us up.
With the FIDs, that helps also with our ability to instruct our students virtually now, which we never had before. That's definitely something we're looking at. If we have to look at making tweaks, adding, taking them out, we have more options now than we did previously.
And just if I could interject as a reminder, the 3 years for our FIDs, if you recall, was the 2020, the 1920 to 2021 and the 21-22. Because of when we applied and how they had changed requirements for that due to virtual instruction that was mandated in the spring, that period was, back a year than our current year and next year. So next year we will need to reapply for the next 3 years. So it's not like 3 years from now. We're already in the middle.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And 5.01 is questions from the public. Linda, do we have anyone in the public that has?
We do. We have 2 people. Janine Mattern is the first person.
Okay, thank you.
Janine, can you hear us? Joe, I think you'll have to unmute because I don't have the. Janine, can you hear us? Janine?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Sorry, I have dead zones in my house. I was curious how PSSA and Keystones will work this year with half of our student body learning virtually and the other within the buildings, and what those safety guidelines are going to look like.
Have we heard anything from the state on that at this point?
Yeah, for our winter keystones, for example, the primary, really the only adjustment that the state has made to this point is extending the testing window. And that would allow districts, obviously, a longer period of time to test students. So you would be able to accommodate the amount of students that you have in the building at any one time, rather than having to worry about it doing keystone testing in 6 days. Rather, it's spread out significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So, we are looking at the viability of testing on Mondays when it's a non-instructional day that students can come in. And because we also have to worry about the staffing that's involved with that in order to have proctors assigned and amount of students in the buildings, in classrooms, and things like that. So the only adjustment made thus far is that expansion of the testing window. Sometimes people are under the misnomer that the governor could arbitrarily put an end to Keystone or to PSSA testing. That is a federal requirement through the SSA Act, not something that Pennsylvania legislators can alter. So unless there's any word from the federal government about making any types of adjustments, we'll wait and see. So not sure where that's going to land.
And I just have one other question. Have we had any dialogue on possibly reevaluating the grading for, and I'm just going to use our middle school students that are 100% virtual? I know there was talk when the pandemic first hit about doing pass fail. I know we have a model in place. Our independent study course at the high school uses a pass fail system. Has there been any dialogue on what that'll look like, being that they're not getting the one-on-one per se like they would in a building, but they're still choosing to remain 100% virtual? I'm just curious.
Okay. No, you're talking about changing the grading policy or adjusting that somehow?
Or maybe just different benchmarks and assessments, because it's not apples to apples, obviously, you know, when they're in the classroom with the teacher 4 days a week, as opposed to those that chose to remain 100% virtual. And
Right.
again, I choose middle school only because we know that our higher education partners don't even look at grades prior to 9th grade. We only use that for data in consideration for them for honors classes. So I was just curious on if there was any dialogue on changing that for the second semester.
I think it's definitely twofold. No, we have not looked at changing that per se. It's clearly assessing students looks different from the virtual capacity. We've had some professional development even offered today that talked about, you know, different ways that you can offer and how you can assess students when you're not with them face to face and you're in a distance learning capacity. So that continues to be a challenge, but we are not looking at this point to changing anything to like a pass-fail scenario like you suggested.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we also have Mr. Aliota. Mr. Aliota, do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, good. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good evening, board, directors, administration. A happy new year to you. Happy and healthy, prosperous new year for 2021. Hopefully it'll be better than 2020. I had one question relative to the course in world geography. Is that an AP course, that World Geography 2?
The World Geography course is offered to all freshmen. The advanced placement course offering is a geography course that students would be eligible to take grades 10 through 12.
Okay. Is that similar to World Geography 1, where I believe 2 or 3 years ago, you presented it to the board, and the caption or the description of the course stated that it will prepare our students for citizens of the world. Can you recall that, Dr.?
I do recall that. Please bear in mind that those course descriptions come directly from College Board and are not produced locally.
Oh yeah, no, I realize that, Dr. Stoops. There's no question that I have about that. What I'm addressing is the definition of a citizen of the world and whether we are teaching our students, our young minds, that you are students of the world. And at that time, when I was on the board, I asked the question relative to what is the definition of a citizen? And you had to have it applied to a country or an area where there were borders, because the citizen has that right to that particular country, etc. Now, how could you have citizens of the world? In other words, you could change the term from citizen to partners of the world. You see, the thing is, what I'm bringing up and what I'm addressing is that we are not citizens of the world. We are citizens of the United States of America. And I brought it up 2-3 years ago, and I'm bringing it up again because sometime in the future, I would like to audit some of the classes with the permission of the board. So, it's just my input, and I appreciate your response. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other hands raised, Linda?
I see no other hands raised.
Okay, then I would like to move to 6.01. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Orlando, Dr. Ninekamp, Dr. Stoops. I appreciate your input.
All done?
All done.
Okay, if we can move on to the Personnel and Policy Committee meeting.
I guess I'll take that. If you have a roll call, Linda?
Roll call for personnel and policy. Janine is absent this evening. Chris, I believe, is absent this evening. And so that leaves Lisa.
Yeah.
And Gary.
Myself as president.
Okay.
Okay, so if we can just have the 1.02 approval of the agenda. Lisa?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'll second that. All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Okay, 2.01, Personnel Policy Committee meeting minutes of November the 9th, 2020. I guess we need
I'll make
approval of
a
that. I put the board motion.
Second.
Second, okay, approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, passes. Okay, item 3.01, Policy 309, telework, first reading. Ms. Mosley.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Capabianca and Mr. Winchell. So we have two of the final policies this month that are moving forward from the block that PSBA had suggested relative to items specific for pandemic. So item 3.01 is policy 309.1 telework. This is a new policy for us, just describing and defining what telework is, acknowledging the conditions under which telework will take place. You will see that we have chosen all of the 8 indicators given. It describes the general conditions and the emergency conditions. The text that you see in green are the additions that Knox made under their review and approval for this policy to go forward.
Okay, that's the first reading, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Mosley, on 3.01, how many teachers do we have teleteaching now, including the elementary?
So at the elementary, we have a full complement K-5. Joe, how many are K-5? I don't know.
Count them right now.
Okay, we'll have that number for you in a moment. In the middle level, we have 2 currently, with a few others that are inquiring and looking at semester break options. And at the high school, we have a few as well, with a few additional inquiring and looking at their options for the semester break demarcation also. So I would say middle and high, you're probably looking at 4. And at the elementary,
There are 19 or 20.
Oh.
Remember, that does because Grandview is on their own, so 19 or 20 elementary, and that services all 5 of our K-5.
mm-hmm.
So about 30 total?
yeah, I would say 25 to 30.
That's great that we accommodated the teachers like that.
We
Nice
have
job.
worked very hard to accommodate our teachers' needs and meet, the needs that they have had, whether it is through, perhaps a health restorative sabbatical or a teleworking situation, as well as the intermittent teleworking that takes place if someone should need to quarantine and or isolate.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Item 3.02 is policy 314, physical examination. This is a policy that then articulates that when we are in the middle of a pandemic, or if otherwise necessary, that there may be a threat to public safety, that we can require health monitoring of our folks for communicable diseases in our school settings to the maximum extent permissible under the law. And again, the green that you see there is the text that Knox has added in so that it would be approved. This is a new policy for us as well.
Okay.
Our final item under personnel and policy this month is the January personnel report. Some highlights on that report. At Asbury, we are looking for your approval at the end of the month for a retirement of a grade 1 teacher. The recommendation of a special ed assistance for our life skills program. At Bell Valley, we have a resignation of an educational assistant and a recommendation for an educational assistant. At Chestnut Hill, we have the resignation of a Title I ed assistant as well as a J1 first shift custodian. At Grandview, we have a change of status, a staff nurse to a emergency certified school nurse. And we have a other category. At Tracy, we have a sabbatical. At JS Wilson, we have no activity this month. Walnut Creek, no activity this month. Westlake, no activity this month. Sarah Reed, McDowell Intermediate, no activity this month. At McDowell Senior High School, we have the resignation of a staff nurse. And at the Ed Center, we have your monthly for student employee activities with the recommendation of a new monitor and several terminations and retirements. We also have a change of status for additional 4 teleteachers for a temporary reassignment due to COVID situations.
Okay. With 3.01, 3.02, 3.03, I'd like to move that forward in form of a motion for the regular board meeting. A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move those 3 forward. Thanks. 4.01, any informational items this month?
We did not have any information.
Okay, thank you. 5.01, any questions from the public for Personnel Policy Committee?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, if that
Oh,
will.
wait, one just came up.
Okay.
Mr. Eliota. Mr. Eliota, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you again, Ms. Sitter. A question on the, has the board considered the publication of a proposed policy, whether it's new or it's revised, to the public when the agenda is published on either Thursday or Friday the previous week? And the reason for it, and again, this is an issue that I brought up a couple of years back, whereby it'll give time to digest by the public, whether it's parents or residents, to read it over. Has that been considered?
Mr. Eliota, I think I can answer that for you. We consider at all times throughout the year possible revisions. Revision requests can come from our employees, from our board members, from the public, and we consider those and move forward if we, are so inclined. The majority of our revisions, as you know, from being a former board member, do come from the quarterly newsletters that PSBA publishes with any updates that we need to make procedurally based on, their legal counsel, based on new laws that have come out and other recommended guidance. All of those policies then are referred to Attorney Senate and the Knox Law Firm for their review prior to them coming forward. The same process we've had in place.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. The question that I'm raising is that if it goes through a logical sequence of review, would it be prudent to post that particular either new policy or revised policy when the actual agenda is published so that parents can look at it?
Mr. Eliota, Tim Sennett here. Those policies are published after the committee of the whole meeting and prior to the board meeting. They are posted on the website.
Okay,
So,
and that's under the agenda?
They are part of the agenda for the board meeting, and they are in there so the public can review them at that time when the board meeting agenda is made live.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Linda, any other questions from the public?
I see no other hands.
Okay, hearing none. 6.01, adjournment. Put forward a motion.
I'll
Second.
make a motion to, you put the motion for second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, meeting adjourned. Policy Committee. Personnel Policy Committee is adjourned. Finance and Operations, Mr. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Winchell. 1.01, roll call.
Okay, Finance and Operations Committee, Mr. Lindner,
Here.
Mr. DePlacido.
Here.
And Mr. Winchell.
Here.
I will start with 1.02, approval of agenda. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote? Mr. Winchell?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to 2.01, Finance and Operation Committee minutes from November 9th, 2020. I have a motion to bring those forward.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote on the matter?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving onward to Finance and Operation Committee action items. Mike, you'd like to take us away on from?
Yeah.
If you want to bounce around a little bit?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do, and then Aaron can take over. So,
Excellent.
So 3.01 is the Otis service contract. So we use a different provider right now. Their service is insufficient, and we're paying roughly $12,332 per year. So this new contract, from everything I'm seeing, we would get the exact same, if not a little bit more service, and that would be $5,832 per year. And this is for our 3 elevators that we have throughout the school district. They're also local. Any questions on that?
How long did we have the Otis contract?
The new one?
The previous contract?
Oh, the previous one is actually a 7-year contract with no out clauses that started in 2009. So this contract's much better. So
How long is this one, Mike, for?
I think we ended up doing. I think we just did a year or 2 years. I'm sorry, I didn't look at it in a while.
3 year.
Is it 3 years? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Then I'll go on, I'll skip 3.02, I'll go to 3.03. So this is a contract to use HF Lens Company for the design services related to the Walnut Creek MEP renovation that would be scheduled for 2022. So just going back, we've been using HF Lens for all of our projects so far. So at this point, this would be the 11th or 12th one that we've been using, once we get through this next summer. We did put this out competitively to bid for McDowell Intermediate. We got a good turnout, and HF Lens was still the low for that project. So for this one, we went to them first. I will say their fee came in very nice. They want to keep working with us. So that came out to roughly 4%. Industry standards, roughly 4.5%. And that was at their estimate, which I actually consider their estimate a little bit low. So when you figure in the estimate I came up with, that was roughly 3.6%. So again, they're working out great. They're doing a great job, and they're giving us a good fee. They want to keep working with us, so I am recommending that we move forward with them. Any questions?
You mentioned 2022 for this, Mike?
Yes.
Is that part of the bond that we have right now? Or the money's going to come out of what we have already
So we were
approved?
We're going to talk about that. We're starting to put together numbers a little bit more. I know we talked about it a little bit. The estimates were a little off this last year. So actually, Aaron and I are in the process of putting together a full plan of what's left. And I can let Aaron talk to that a little bit more. I don't know exactly if this money is included in that first one or not. But let us put together some more numbers for that.
Well, I guess my concern is if we have to go out for another bond to cover this particular project, should we wait a little bit to talk about the bond and before we start spending money that maybe we don't have approved, right?
Yeah, and that's fair. I think if you take into account, and again, I'll have to look at it a little bit closer, but so McDowell Intermediate, when we approved that, the goal for that is to be a 3-year project in order to complete that because of the size of it. So I think that's a good point. I think technically the Walnut Creek money could come out of the first bond, but then the McDowell Intermediate one would have to then go into a subsequent bond. So maybe that is something that we need to talk about.
I guess, I know we've talked about it a lot, another bond.
Right.
I guess my concern is with everything going on, and I'm not sure what the budget discussions are going to bring here, but it might end up that maybe we push it out a year or something. Certainly, it's got to be done. I'm not saying we can't.
Well, and I think that would be my one statement to that would be, the Walnut Creek system definitely needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
And we need the time to put it together. So even if we did go through this process, especially because we don't even pay for, construction administration fees get taken out, we're still paying them for a design. We'll still do a design that'll be either good next year in 2022, 2023, 2024. You know what I mean? So we could, if everybody wants to move forward with that. The design's not gonna change, and we will have to address it in the next couple of years. Hopefully, if we can get everything approved. I guess that would be my comment to that. But that's a good point.
But we would have the money to do with $200-some thousand. We would have, no matter what, we would have the money for this.
Yes, I mean, we would be,
in this bond.
Worst case scenario, if we did not issue a second bond, if there was not a second bond issue, we have the money in our capital projects fund to cover this cost.
Okay. One of the things that I've heard is that the spec is going to change for construction. The state labor L&I or whatever, that starting this year now, 2021, there's a new set of standards that will be applied to construction projects in Pennsylvania. Have you heard that or any information?
I thought that was last year was the 2015 International Building Code was adopted. So I will tell you, the engineer's been designing everything to the 2015 code. And then BIU is responsible for ensuring that actually gets done, which is the third-party reviewer.
So no matter what, we assume that the 2015 will be okay.
Yes, they have been.
We won't have to redesign this, I guess.
No.
If it waits a year.
No. The only way we would have to redesign is if we truly ran out of money and we had to do some sort of, hybrid renovation. Right. And even then, we wouldn't have to redesign. I think there'd be a way we could make that work.
Okay.
I feel confident with that.
Yeah. Because there's still unknowns in this bond.
That's fair. Yeah.
Projects.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I'd just like to commend you. Bringing a project in at 3.6% of fees is a good relationship with our partner here, especially when industry average is almost a point higher. So, that's a true savings to the district because we build a strong relationship and we're happy with the product that's being given to us. So, thank you for building that relationship.
Yeah, appreciate that. So then the 3.04, this is McFarland Kistler and Associates. This is their fee to do the kitchen redesigns. So this would be for Walnut Creek. So we've been using them for the kitchens as we go through the renovations, looking at them. So they always give us a number not to exceed. So that number is $12,900. Again, they're a great company to work with, and we've used them on all of our renovations up to this point as well. Any questions on that?
Would there be other equipment, you feel, Mike, associated with the redesign of that?
So typically what we do is we do a full assessment of the kitchen. So they come through, and part of their fee is they go through and they're like, they look at all the model numbers, they determine what's in good shape, what's in bad shape. They take input from us. And then basically the redesign, it depends. If the serving lines are in good shape, then they won't replace them. So 2 of the schools, we didn't replace the serving lines. The other ones we did. And that's based on a number of different factors. So it's kind of we work together to figure out the scope once they get into it. And that's also input from us. And then typically what we've been doing is reducing the size of the kitchen hood. That's the biggest thing. The hoods are 2 and 3 times bigger than they need to be based on the equipment we have, based on the students and all that. So we get a bunch of energy savings. So it makes sense to do it as part of when you're doing the rest of the renovation, because you can downsize the size of the HVAC equipment and everything else.
And I'm sure you can control that rearrangement itself with new equipment should it need it.
Yes.
You control that.
Yes, and so now we're standardizing on equipment across the board. So it's all exact same. We use the same steamer everywhere. Use all of that. The other big thing we're doing is a lot of these kitchens over the years have because they had different managers and stuff. They have some different equipment that they don't necessarily need. So we've been consolidating and also standardizing all of the kitchens as we move forward based on student count and then what they actually need in order to cook. So it's been working out really well doing that while we're doing the renovation. So. Anything else?
Thank you.
That takes us to 3.02, the Susquehanna Group Agreement. And what that is that relates directly to what Mr. DePlasto, you were talking about in regards to a second bond issue. So this is an agreement to do a second bond issue. For the first 50 million, it was 50.6. It was the total amount of the first bond issue. We did renovate. I'd like to remind everybody that we renovated MEC in Grandview this past summer. We have, for this upcoming summer, Westlake, Chestnut Hill, Bow Valley, and Ridgefield. And then we also have for next summer, Walnut Creek and MIHS that are planned. With the rough estimates that we have in mind, that is going to take us about $3 million more than the 50.6 million we issued. So that grand total is about 53.6. So it's time to start talking about issuing a second bond, as we always knew that we would need to do. I would suggest that we would use the auction as we did prior with this bond. It came in at a true interest rate of 2%. It allowed it to be more competitive, and giving our financial stability as well as the size of the bond we'll need, I think it will attract the big Wall Street players to the auction house. Again, we don't anticipate issuing any bond until about a year's time, but it would be just good to get this contract passed, allow them to do some debt models that we can incorporate into our budget for this upcoming fiscal year.
Ahead of the game.
We are.
It's good.
Yeah, that auction model really benefited the district. You know, before we always did kind of like negotiated deals, and you know, the market wasn't quite right, but our advisor, you know, advised us to go to the market, and that was quite a day that day when we had all the, you know, we had JP Morgan, we had Citibank, we had Fidelity, all the major firms in there bidding on it. It really gave us a good competitive advantage, I would say, by putting everyone on the time against each other. So it worked very well last time.
Great. Any questions?
So you're thinking about a year time frame?
Yeah, roughly a year. Again, we'll see how the market is going along those lines, and what we expect. As Mike had just mentioned, we are looking to revise estimates to try to find out exactly how big of a bond issue we might need. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but again, the fee, we don't pay anything unless we issue the bond. So there's no harm in approving the agreement now.
Well, I do like the fact that T can provide a lot of different modeling for us as far as our debt service, which helps you in the budgeting process.
Agreed.
And you're forecasting 1, 3, 5 years down the road into 15 years. Great. Okay, thanks.
Okay, moving on to 3.05. That's our accounts payable report. Any questions regarding that? 3.06 are the student activity account officers that are revised for McDowell and MIHS. These are recurring in nature. Any questions with that? 3.07 is the donation of the Walnut Creek donation of $500 to the Walnut Creek Technology Education Department. This is actually a retired teacher who cut a check for $500 and wanted to donate that. I commend that gentleman. We thank you. We thank him for the contribution, and that's for the board to accept.
And we'll spend it wisely.
That we will. And then the last item is 3.08, which is our audit, both the financial audit as well as the single audit. The single audit is the smaller document of the two. That is an audit of our federal programs. It was a clean audit. They had no findings. That's already been issued to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. And then the bigger document is our financial audit. I did, again, as we continue to provide the financial statements on a monthly basis, I mean, we already know from a fund level where we ended the year that ties to our June financial reports. I take you to page 17. This is the balance sheet related to those. And down at the bottom, we have a total fund balance of $17.4 million for general fund, $46.5 million for our capital reserve, which is our bond proceeds that we hadn't spent as of 6/30/2020. And then we have $7.3 million in our capital projects. Moving on to page 13 is our government-wide, which is the difference between your fund level and your government-wide financials is fixed assets and long-term debt, essentially. That tells you on page 13, you can see the comparison of our government-wide financials for revenue and expenditures, which roll into, on page 15, our balance sheet. Now, our total net position, government-wide, is a negative $85.6 million. The reason why we're at a negative 86.5 is the unfunded pension liability of 143.9 is our share from the state, unfunded pension liability. So it's a little misleading because that pension liability itself takes us from a positive to a negative. Outside of that, we did issue, as I mentioned, the $50.6 million. When you include that into our debt, that gives us our total long-term liabilities at $244 million. When you account for the OPEB as well as the net pension liability. Try to keep that at a very high level. Any questions in regards to financial audit?
He'll be at the, someone for the audit firm will be at our board meeting at the end of the month.
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that, Mr. Winchell. At the end of the month, our audit team will be, our auditors will be presenting this as well.
Okay, and I would like to bring in a form of a motion, items 3.01, 3.03, 3.04, 3.05, 3.06, and 3.07.
Motion.
Forward. Thank you.
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. And as a follow-up motion, I'd like to bring forward 3.02. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then the final item is item 3.08. I can have a motion.
So moved. Gary.
Second. John.
Any discussion on that topic?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item 4.01. Is there any informational item this evening?
We do not.
Linda, are there any questions from the public? 5.01.
I do not see any hands raised. Let's give it a second. No hands are raised.
Okay. That I will motion for an adjournment. I have a second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice job.
That concludes all the committee meetings. We can proceed right now for the committee of the whole meeting. So, committee of the whole meeting dated January 11th, 2021. Linda, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Busco is absent this evening. Ms. Capabianca.
Here.
Mr. Dean.
Here.
Mr. DePlacido.
Here.
Mr. Lindner.
Here.
Ms. McClintock is absent this evening. Mr. Winchell.
Here.
Mrs. Winchell.
Here.
Dr. Roberts.
Here.
And Attorney Senate.
Here. Okay, thank you. 1.02 executive session announcement. An executive session was held January the 11th, 2021 for the reason of personnel and safety. 1.03 approval of the agenda. Have a motion for that or do the amendment after the motion?
Well, if I could ask, as part of the motion, that you include, under my report, the affiliation agreement for the student clinical placement and instruction between the Mill Creek Township School District and Gannon University. A copy of that agreement is at your place in front of you.
I'll make that motion with the
Second,
addendum.
Second.
Dean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, hearing none, passes. 1.04, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.01, visitors.
Okay, do we have any visitors? Yes, we do have a visitor. Mr. Aliotta would like to speak.
Okay.
1 second here. Mr. Aliotta, can you hear me?
Yes, I just unmuted the signal.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Short and sweet this evening to the board. I'd like to congratulate President Winchell. He's a breath of fresh air. I have been writing to both Superintendent Dr. Roberts and President Winchell. I've known Gary for many years. He's a fine individual, both as a friend and also as a former school board director. You have addressed a number of issues that I've sent to you, to the school board directors, and I want to just compliment you in addressing those in a timely fashion. It truly is a feat from a number of years ago. What I'd like to bring up and bring to the attention of the board and Dr. Roberts is the communication between the public and either the district or the board relative to issues that may need an attachment to the portal. Again, President Winchell, you're addressing it. You have elevated that issue to the respective personnel, I would assume in technology, or even to Dr. Roberts making a recommendation so that the parents, taxpayers, residents can send a notice, an issue, ask questions, and then attach a relevant document so that there is some feedback and there's some foundation for it. So again, thank you very much, Gary, and truly appreciate your effort in communicating. You take care and have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak? I don't see any hands raised. I'll give it a minute here.
So we wait.
I see no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the public. Item 3, Superintendent's report. Dr. Roberts.
Thank you, President Winchell. There are 3 items under the superintendent's report this evening. The first item number 3.01, the ESS Northeast addendum regarding substitute teachers and staff. We are bringing this item forward for action. This is an item where we've made an addendum to our full-day daily rate for our substitute teachers. While we believe that the Mill Creek Township School District is the finest school district in Pennsylvania in which to work, we also wanted to continue to keep that competitive edge during the time when substitute teachers are critical to the operation of our schools. And so we have made an addendum to our daily offering to be competitive to take effect January 4th, 2021.
Okay, so like a motion on that. In a second, we have some discussion then.
I'll make a motion, Dean.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. The second item is item number 3.02, an item for action as well, and this is a request to approve the hiring of the head coach for the girls JV basketball team. Ordinarily, this item under the personnel report would have been brought forth much later on, but this is an item that needed to come forward to the board now for your approval because we are in the height of the season. Our student athletes are excited about having a new coaching board, and so this item is brought to you for action.
Okay, do I have a motion for that? Second?
Second, Dean.
Any discussion? Okay. Hearing, we could have a vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion passes.
Third and final item under the superintendent's report, item number 3.03 is the health and safety plan for January 2021. I know that currently Attorney Sendin is working on the revised plan, and we will continue to update and bring it forward as needed. But this updated plan is brought to you for your action.
You want me to review some of the major changes?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So if you recall, the old plan had a former system in there of red, yellow, and green. And so one of the major changes in this document is to transition this document to the new levels of substantial community transmission and then low and moderate community transmission. So if you look at page 3 of the report, you'll see that there are definitions in regard to those two areas, and we have replaced the red, yellow, and green scenario. And so that carries through the entire document in regard to that change. The next significant change, at least in my opinion, is would be found on page 5, and that's where we select the current reopening plan of the school district itself. And so previously we had a blended opening, and now we are putting an X mark in the scaffolding reopening as it's defined right there in the language. If you have any questions, just ask me. I'm just going to keep going unless somebody stops. Okay. The next significant change, I think, is found on page 9. And there you have at the top what we refer to as the opening and closing of schools. And this is, again, a draft, but it's something for your consideration. Substantial community transmission at 2% COVID positivity or higher of students and staff in a building, the building will be closed. I'll let that sink in for a second.
I have a question.
Yep.
It's stinking still, but before it sinks too low, I lose my train of thought. So substantial community transmission is the what community? Milford community?
Right.
Just
Well,
Milford.
that
Erie
is,
County.
It's based on our statistics that count for Erie County.
Erie
So
County.
each week we get an updated, you recall it's the percentage of, positives per 100,000 residents, as well as the percentage of tests that come back positive. And so we use those data points to make that determination based on PDE's metric. If it is over 10%, it is in the substantial range, and if it is over 100 residents per 100,000, that's considered to be substantial.
So can I just read that then in the red? In substantial community transmission, over positivity, blah, blah, blah. It says the building is closed. So can you explain what that means?
So you,
So if we have, our metric will be that if we have more than 2% of our staff and students in one of our buildings,
Okay.
Who are confirmed positive, we would look at an intermittent closure. Previously, the metric that we were utilizing was a 1 to 2%, depending on the building and the population size. And as we have, come back with more students in our buildings, we felt that we needed to adjust that, so it's at the 2% threshold. So if the community is insubstantial and if we have 2% of our, staff or students who are positive.
I can screen share it if that would be helpful.
So
that's that's our.
Okay, so if the community is 2, but we are not at 2, then we're not.
We would not look at an intermittent.
Okay.
Unless there was some other factor that we needed to consider.
I understand.
And just to clarify, the intermittent closure essentially means that we are pivoting towards our 100% virtual instructional model.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
and so right below there, it
If I can-
says insubstantial community transmission below 2% COVID, 19 positivity rate of students and staff in the building, then you see below, that then provides, where you are.
How do we calculate the total population of a student or the building? Are we taking the students that are there on the day, the janitorial staff, the teachers, the admin, or what makes up that number? And, is that a number that we're going to share with the public to say, Chestnut Hill is this, Bell Valley is this, these are our thresholds for 2% per building? Because
it's actually been updated by PDE, so it's actually no longer up to us. And I've screen shared. I don't know if you can see it or if Linda needs to, but it's actually on their site and it's linked to our dashboard that anybody can click to look at it.
So I guess what I'm getting to is the hard number. Is it 10 students? Is it 10 per building? Is it each building's gonna have a different number?
Correct. It's broken down by building size on PDE. So they basically adopted a similar model to what they had, and now it's updated on their site. So you can see it's less than 500, 500 to 900, and then greater than 900. So every Monday I get updated building numbers.
So prior to this, we actually utilized the lowest attending number in the building, and so it varied by school. But with the new guidance from PDE, we're following this update. So the other question is, will we have hard numbers? Something for us to think about. I know they have sort of some variation between 0 to 500 or 0 to 1,000. We would have to think about what the numbers will mean for each school, because the numbers will be somewhat fluid, or we can look at our current enrollment for the year. So we can actually essentially say that Asbury, for example, would be within the 0 to 500 range. But a hard number, I'm not sure we can land on a hard number, either Darcy or Crystal.
We would just look at what that enrollment is
Yeah.
and figure out our percentage by building. It will vary a little based on the enrollment because we do have buildings in the 0 to 5, the 5 to 1,000 or 900 actually, and then the high schools are over that.
Yeah, where it gets sort of intricate is that what is not being taken into consideration is the number of students who are actually attending in person versus those who are virtual. So we're using the general number of just the enrollment.
That's a very fluid number.
It is.
I actually have it broken down by that in a spreadsheet.
Thank you, Crystal.
I will have to re-update it, obviously, at the second semester start.
Any other questions then? Moving on to page 12. That just reflects if you what you're currently doing. The K through 8 is in person 4 days, except for Monday. Monday's a virtual day, and your students 9 through 12 are on a hybrid schedule. And we're just reflecting that in the document itself. Okay. The next area, pages 13 on to 14, it's talking about cafeterias. Again, we're just documenting what we're doing. As I understand, K through 5 will eat breakfast, lunch in their classrooms with no transitions. K or 6 through 12 will, assuming they come back, will be on a staggered breakfast, lunch schedule in classrooms when possible in other locations, alternative locations to the cafeteria. And we put in there a shortened day may be required, and no lunches may be served under an altered schedule. That's an option that could be considered at some point in time in the future. So it's in there as an option, and we thought we'd just put it in there now as opposed to trying to put it in later. Okay? Any questions on that? Moving on then, on page 17, we're just again documenting your sports, youth sports considerations and what you're doing and following your athletic plan. Okay. Next change is significant change. There's other changes, they're all redlined, but these are the significant ones. On face shields and masking, which is on pages 28 and 29. Again, that needed to be updated based on the new governor's mask rules. We had some language in there previously that were based on the old rules, but so we had to update that language, and that's what that section does. And those are the significant changes to the health and safety plan. There's some other verbiage changes throughout the document, but just trying to be consistent going forward. I don't know, Mrs. Mosley, if you have any other changes you wanted to highlight.
The only other one I might have highlighted for you was on 20 under the transportation piece, just addressing that with more students back that we needed to address that. It's no longer one per seat, that we do have to make some adjustments depending on bus routes. But the rest, really, when you see all the red in there, it's all the important items that Attorney Senate was kind enough to highlight, and then you just see the removal of the red, yellow, green categories into the substantial, moderate, and low.
So if the board is comfortable, we would seek your approval of the health and safety plan as revised. Now, obviously this document can be revised again in the future, and we probably will revise in the future as things change. So we kind of change it as you evolve, and then go from there. Thank you.
So can I have a motion for acceptance for the health and safety plan, January 2021, as presented by Solicitor Tim Senate?
Motion, Shirley.
Second, Mike.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you, President Winchell. That concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
Okay, move on to 4 solicitors report.
Yes, the first item then was the addition of the affiliation agreement for the student clinical placement and instruction between Mill Creek and Gannon University. This agreement is, I think, was put in place back in 2008, and it's been ongoing, I think, since that time. We just needed a revised and updated document, and we received it today. So you're accepting those clinical students from the university, and you have been for a long period of time to help out your system. So we're just seeking a motion to approve this document as a new revised version.
I'll make a motion.
Second. I'll second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Hearing none, passes.
The next item is Just a clarification in regard to, we make these announcements in regard to executive sessions, which we do on a per meeting basis. And sometimes there's concerns as to what do those exceptions mean. We just say, oh, there's an exception for personnel. What does that mean? Well, the Sunshine Act provides for exceptions in regard to personnel, and it's basically anything related to personnel. You can have an exception to the Sunshine Act, and you can have an executive session for that purpose for personnel. So we talk about the hiring and the firing, the evaluation of personnel, and all those things fall into place. In addition, the holding of information, strategy, negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement falls under that personnel section. So when we announce it's for personnel, it can encompass all those things that are I just referred to as the exception to the open meeting rule, and you can have an executive session. The other area of the law that we announce is we have an executive session for safety purposes. And what does that mean? We just say it's for safety purposes. Well, the law says that allows the school board to have an executive session to discuss public safety issues if the disclosure or information discussed would be reasonably likely to jeopardize or threaten public safety or the preparedness for public safety or public protection. So again, that's a pretty broad statement in that law that allows us to talk about various things that would affect the health and safety, not of our students, but our staff and our preparedness and our plans in regard to health and safety and the protection of students, staff, and everyone else. So when we announce that we're entering into these executive sessions for those purposes, it can be for all those things that I just reviewed. And I think sometimes people think that if you announce it for public safety, that's only in regard to a safety plan if we're concerned about intruders or something like that. That's not what the law says. That wasn't what the purpose of the law. The purpose of the law was to give us a broad-based ability to have an executive session, to have a frank discussion about preparedness and protecting our students and staff and all those things that are encompassed in that. So I just wanted to clarify that because I think there's some confusion out there in the public as to what we do in these executive sessions and what we're permitted to do. And just to assure the public, I attend every one of those executive sessions, and I make sure that the board doesn't go outside those parameters in regard to those executive sessions. That's my role as the solicitor, and so we try to do that. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Senate, for that clarification. Item 5, old business. Do we have any old business? Hearing none. 6, new business. I have one item I'd like to discuss. As we know, we lost a colleague a few weeks ago, and Mr. Morbido, Tom Morbido, is a valued member of this board, and we need to replace Mr. Morbido within 30 days of the vacancy, which would be next week. And I know we've had public notice in the newspaper and on our website asking for applicants to apply for that vacancy. So I just want to spend a minute kind of reviewing the process in light of transparency so everyone understands where we go from here. So over the last week, we received a number of applications, 9 in fact. The deadline was today at 3:30. The applicants were requested to send a cover letter, attach a resume, and there's a series of questions that were submitted with those applications. Ms. Sitter has forwarded the applications to all of your emails, to the board members' emails. And the process, as in the past, you'll be asked to prioritize or rank those 9 candidates, one being the highest or your most highly rated candidate, and we'll rank those through 1 through 9. And we would ask to have those returned to Linda, Ms. Sitter, by Wednesday at noon. Okay, so everyone will rank those 1 through 9 return to Ms. Sitter Wednesday by noon. And then those scores will be tabulated to come up with 3 finalists, okay, which have the highest rankings of all the 9 candidates. Those 3 finalists will be informed by Ms. Sitter to attend our special board meeting next Tuesday, the 19th of January, which falls within the 30 days, at which time those 3 individuals will be interviewed by the board by some additional questions, each one separately. The 8 questions were asked. Each of the applicants will be the same questions, you know, so it's consistent, one at a time, individually. And at that point, after those 3 will be interviewed, we will decide on which individual applicant will fill the seat of the vacancy. That individual will be sworn in that evening. The named replacement will be sworn in that evening, and will be sitting at the board for our meeting thereof. So any other questions or anything on the process? Just want to make sure that was kind of out to everyone to know what the process was.
Just to be clear, Gary, the 1 through 9 for each of the candidates, in the column where the individual votes, there's only there'll be all those numbers in there. There won't be 2 1s, for example, if you think 2 are equal or.
No, we ask everyone to prioritize 1 through 9.
Yeah.
1 through 9, return those. 1 being your highest ranking, qualified in your mind.
But you can only use the number 1.
Correct.
Yeah, I just
yes.
clarify.
Okay. Good point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like your golf score. Lower the better. Just so everyone knows. And Linda did a fantastic job. I did look at that to very good instructions how to follow. So if we can take a look at that, I know it's going to be a lot of information, reviewing the questions, but we just want to keep the process going and things like that. So appreciate a quick response on that, so Linda can kind of get everything tabulated and make sure we inform the 3 finalists, as well as thanking, of course, we thank everyone for their interest, all 9 people for their interest in serving the community and serving on this board. Okay, any other new business? Okay, hearing none. Remarks, school board remarks. We have a few. Any school board remarks? Well, I would like to, as long as I'm talking, I'm going to keep talking. I'd just like to do a call out for Dr. Roberts. You know, I know the last few weeks we've had a lot of meetings back to school. That week between Christmas and New Year's, we received a awful lot of letters. And I had 3 separate individuals, had students, make comments that Dr. Roberts reached out to them and replied to their letters, and how impressed they were that he took the time to respond to that. So I talked to Dr. Roberts about that. He said, yeah, some were 2 a.m, but I try to respond to all of them. So thank you for doing that, reaching out and making our people and parents feel important. So I do want to do a little kudos and plaudits for Dr. Roberts on that. That little thing goes a long way. Thank you. Any other remarks?
I want to invite Katie Macaglia to share a little bit with the board. You are seen as a part of our Stronger Together campaign. There's some swag for you to take with you. So Katie.
Good evening, school board, and thank you, Dr. Roberts. Yes, each of you should have received one of our Stronger Together care kits, which includes some of the items that our staff at each of our school buildings, as well as selected students, received via home deliveries from Dr. Roberts for the Stronger Together campaign. And just wanted to share these items with you so you can take part in our campaign. It's really our effort to continue to stop the spread of COVID-19 and come together as a community and practice those 3 W's in the classrooms, in our school buildings, and also at home. Wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your distance. We're really excited. We also developed 4 videos for the community with Dr. Roberts and the Allegheny Health Network CEO and President, Dr. Chris Clark. And those videos can be viewed on our website as well. So again, each of you should have received those care kits, and I really look forward to and thank you all for the opportunity to bring the Mill Creek community together in our Stronger Together campaign this year.
And I noticed a big billboard on Peninsula Drive yesterday. We're going on a bridge of Peninsula Drive. So jumps right out at you. Very
Yes,
good.
we were very fortunate and thankful for our partners at the Allegheny Health Network Sports Medicine Department to come together with us on this. So thank you for noticing.
How many billboards do we have around the Mill Creek, Erie community, Katie?
We rotate on all the digital billboards throughout the month, and then each month there are 4 billboard placements that will go up. Again, all educating the community on the importance of wearing your mask, watching your distance, and really showing the community what our teachers and students are doing to commit themselves to that COVID safety.
Thank you.
Are there lawn signs available if somebody wanted them that was in the community, in the Mill Creek community?
Absolutely. If anyone was interested to participate and show their support for the Stronger Together campaign, I would encourage you to follow us on social media at Mill Creek SD and send me a private message, and I'll be sure to get a delivery out your way.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great job.
Thank you, Katie.
Gary, one other thing.
Yeah.
And it brought up for Mr. Banks, who donated their some monies to a program in the school. And I know we've talked about a little bit of a more robust alumni, McDowell Alumni Association or whatever. And I'm not sure how we can attack that, but I think it's something that we should be considering, something we should look into on how do we make it better and encourage, alumni to participate more into the district, our district. So I'm not sure, maybe Katie has an idea or two, but something we should look at. Maybe we can consider that as we go forward here.
Huge resource we can tap into, that's for sure.
Right.
Thanks, Sean.
So Dr. Roberts, last week we had K-8, 4 days a week. So this was the first time since March that we had consecutive days where our students were actually in school. You were out visiting a bunch of schools. Can you give us a quick update? I know it was exciting in my household for me. I know I have a 6th grader that wasn't very happy about going 4 days a week, but you were out and about. Tell us what you saw. And
Absolutely. So last week, myself and the entire core team, including the amazing folks who were sitting behind you, we committed to visiting schools. So we visited all of our schools. Essentially, we all had very sort of same theory of action in that we wanted to connect with teachers, talk with students, observe instruction, and talk with leaders. I would characterize last week as one that was exciting, one that was incredibly emotional. As you can imagine, our cadre of teachers, staff, and leaders are so committed to our students that they clearly missed our students. March 13th has been a long time. And so that emotion, that excitement, they were all very palpable. So our teachers were certainly in a place where, again, on day one of instructional delivery, you saw the levels of rigor that we expect throughout the year. But what did not get lost on us is that we also had a lot of adults who still had some anxiety. We're still concerned about being in buildings with students, an increased number of students. And so our team, the core team, as well as our personnel and HR team, are providing all of our teachers and staff with resources that can support them in terms of sort of alleviating some of those concerns and anxieties that they have. But it was truly exciting to be back. This week, we're going to continue to do some of that same work. And it's not unusual. Myself and members of the team, we are in schools every single week. But last week was really special. And we're looking forward to tomorrow. Again, we have even more students that are back. So thank you for asking. Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, since I have the floor for me, I want to certainly share my remarks this evening. First, it's grounded in gratitude. And gratitude again for the team, the core team that is sitting behind you, not only for your presentations this evening, but for your continued spirit of collaboration. We know that this work it can become incredibly challenging, but it's so much easier, and it's so much fun when you have a group of folks who you can call on 24 hours a day. And so certainly public gratitude to this team and even those who are in absentia tonight who are not here. And gratitude as well to our teachers, staff, and school leaders. in spite of where we sit right now in this alternate reality of a pandemic, I have not seen a group of individuals who've demonstrated so much resilience and dedication to the work of serving our students, and continuously receive public criticism sometimes to teachers that are not warranted and quite frankly that are not fair. And it is my goal and that of the members of this core team, in the spirit of a football analogy, since we're sitting in the playoffs, please don't shout out who your team is. We intend to serve as the offensive line for all of our teachers and staff, because we know that the work that they're doing every single day requires them to make some calls and make the right plays. And we absolutely have to be committed to blocking for them. And that's what we plan to do. We'll continue to do so. So gratitude to all of our teachers, staff, and our school leaders. And certainly, we know a number of our students also join our board meetings. We want them to know that we are rooting for them. We're committed to fighting on their behalf. And I also want to thank the board for your continued dedication as well to not only our students, but to our teachers. And we hear that all the time. So thank you, board, as well, for your support.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, item 8, committee of the whole adjournment. I'd like to thank Dr. Roberts, board, core team, and the community this evening. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Nope. Move to.
Yeah.